Oh, come on. No, 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 no. Oh. Why am I even still trying? Why am I even still trying? Oh, okay, yeah, no, fine, no, great, yep. I didn't want to play anyways today. Yeah, no, thank you. No, that's awesome. No, thank you so much. That was the launch. And yet we all kept playing. How did a game made by a small independent studio make something so captivating that people rammed their head against server issues for days and still came back to play? I'm talking about Farever, the MMO from Shiro Games. It started off as a small game and quickly got 100,000 players 1 week from launch. It grew that quickly even with all the server issues and glitches. Now the game has had multiple things fixed and the dev team is working on even more. It is an early access title, so you should expect hiccups, but people stayed. And even with the mixed score on Steam, people are still buying the game and singing its praises. Sure, the game is sitting at around 69% on Steam with thousands of reviews, but it's reaching 10k concurrent players almost every day since its launch. So what is Farever? I'm just going to tell you what playing it feels like because the labeling argument is a rabbit hole that nobody wins. You start off creating a character and you're immediately shoved into the world at a quest marker. You start killing crabs, looting chests, no long intro section, and as you progress through the world, you disconnect. No, I'm kidding. The servers are fixed mostly. As you travel the world, it unfolds with all the typical MMO trappings. Quests, loot, job system, dungeon, world bosses. How is it? First off, for the good parts about the game. What got me playing and what has kept me playing? The skills. Instead of doing what a lot of MMOs do and just handing you a blank skill bar and letting you fill it out with whatever you get when you level up, Farever takes a page from Guild Wars 2 and gives weapons their own skills. Now, it's a little bit different from Guild Wars 2, whereas skills in Guild Wars 2 are based on a weapon and class combo, so a hammer on an elementalist is different than a hammer on a guardian. Here, each weapon has its own skills. The glory sword is the same on every class it can be used on, and those skills fill the first half of your skill bar. The second half is filled with your class skills. This is fantastic for a few reasons. For one, it puts actual weight on the loot drops. Weapons aren't just a stat stick slapped onto an auto attack. They have their own skills, thus their own identity. And while those identities are distinct per weapon, they can feel vastly different on a different class because of how interactions work. But here's where it goes even further. Farever has what it calls the arsenal system. You can equip another weapon, and this isn't used for your basic attack, but instead you're allowed to pull any skill from it, including passives, and slot it into your skill bar. And when you hit level 20, you can pull 2 skills from it. So now you're not only picking weapons based on raw numbers, but the most interesting builds, and usually the most powerful ones, come from the interaction between your main weapon, your arsenal weapon, and your class. This has led to a system where even now with the game maxing out at level 20, there are already a lot of builds per class that can cater to different playstyles. I may be slightly biased as someone with over 2,000 hours in Guild Wars 2, but even accounting for that, I think this system is unique and innovative for the genre. And while we're on classes, let's talk about them. So, currently in this build of the game, there are 4 classes at launch: Warrior, Rogue, Mage, and Priest. Warrior right now sits kind of on top. Every class can solo the whole game, including the dungeons and bosses, but Warrior just does it a lot more comfortably than others. Right on Warrior's heels is Priest. Priest ends up playing a lot like a Paladin. You are very tanky, up in people's faces. I'm sure that when more weapons released, ranged builds will be popular on Priest. Currently it plays like a Paladin, and it's very fun. I love Pally, I always have. Then there's Rogue. Rogue is, I would argue, probably balanced right up there with Priest, but it has a higher skill cap, meaning playing a Rogue well can be just as good as a Priest. However, playing a Rogue poorly is just as bad as a Mage. And Mage is at the end. Mage doesn't actually feel bad. It just doesn't feel up to snuff with the rest of them. And I think this is mainly due to the mana mechanic. You seem to spend a lot of it. And a big thing that I've seen people complain about, I myself am going to complain about, is the fact that your auto attack from any of your weapons consumes mana on Mage. It's kind of my understanding that the whole point of having any weapon on Mage is so that you don't use mana and can still defend yourself. But that's none of my business. None of this is a deal breaker in early access. It's just useful knowing going in, so you pick something you actually enjoy while the balance catches up. So something else that is a large part of what keeps players engaged is the exploration. Some MMOs seem to have exploration just for exploration's sake. That's fine, but in this game, every corner seems to have something worth finding. Secret cliffside rooms with rare pets and gliders, bosses I wouldn't have found otherwise, jumping puzzles and side activities that actually give you XP and chests with real loot in them. I'm not saying other MMOs MMOs don't have this, but I am saying Farever does this exceptionally well, especially due to its traversal mechanics, momentum-based jumping, running, and gliding, along with mounts from the very start of the game, making traversal easy, fun, and interesting. Now, some people complain about the mounts from the very start of the game, saying it makes exploration feel a little bit cheap and easy. I personally think that this is fine because I haven't been able to reach areas with my mount that I couldn't reach without it. It just makes getting from point A to point B quicker. This actually leads me to what the game really reminds me of, and don't get mad, but it's Genshin Impact, without the gacha. And I mean that as an actual compliment. I loved Genshin Impact, but I quit because the RNG in the gacha system was far too predatory. I really just couldn't condone what that game was doing. To this day, my friends and I would always talk and be like, you know what I wish I could play right now? Genshin Impact. This game kind of fills that hole for us. Feels like I got a version of that game back without the gacha, and that's amazing. Now, the combat is action-based, non-tab targeted, and it feels really responsive. The bosses are where this really shines. They're mechanically interesting without being a wall. There's a specific rhythm to learning a boss fight that feels earned rather than just pushing and pushing and pushing. The dungeon design is fairly decent. It's nothing super special, but they are enjoyable to play. The co-op is where this game really shines. I think that's just true for any good MMO. Solo is playable, fine. You can play absolutely all the content in the game alone. You do not need to play with anybody else. But I think playing with other people in this game is fun. You know, I think that's kind of the point of MMOs, but I think the best MMOs do what Farever is doing, where, yeah, if you don't have people to play with, you're not hard blocked from getting through the game in any way, shape, or form. Actually, I find some bosses easier in solo, but there's still issues with this game. No, I'm not talking about the servers. Those have been fixed enough at this point that they're about where I would expect them to be for an MMO in early access. There's some lag here and there, but fairly stable otherwise. People are still encountering issues when trying to enter dungeons, especially in groups, maybe caused by the lag. Anyways, in groups, sometimes it'll cause you to separate, with some entering and others being left behind. Usually this takes 1 or 2 retries to fix. I don't find it too bothersome, but if stuff like that really irritates you, you might want to stay away. The dev team has been patching consistently, auto sort for inventories, missing materials added, legendary farming exploits addressed. That's the direction you want to see from an early access dev team. It's not perfect, but it is moving the right way. Now, as for the MMO label, this is an MMO. The server size just seems to be smaller, and there's more instancing than other games in the genre. You're not going to walk into a camp and find hundreds of people dancing and partying like Orgrimmar back in the early 2000s, okay? It's just not going to be that way. I mention this because the game's still in development, and you really shouldn't come into Farever expecting a super polished MMO with endgame raids and massive cities and completely balanced classes. As for the story, currently it's pretty flimsy. Not gonna lie, I couldn't tell you what it is. There's one cutscene at the beginning and I skipped that. I'm just not one for story, so it didn't really matter to me. But if you are somebody who needs a really gripping story, this might not be the MMO for you. Granted, seeing some of the stories in other MMOs, I don't know what is the MMO for you at that point. The systems that are in place now are fairly good, but they do need some tuning. Allowing upgrading weapons really early can feel like a trap to new players, considering while leveling, you may be replacing them so often, and this is kind of a big material sink. There's currently an issue with vastly different gameplay feel being in groups versus solo. While I did say group play is where the game shines, and it is, there's a hiccup with it. Crafting materials are harder to get, because when you're in a group, equipment is instant. So, you know, boots drop for me, gloves drop for you, we both got a piece of equipment, everybody's happy. But materials are not. So whoever's just that little ninja looter getting in there faster, they're getting all the materials, and you can't craft anything later. I understand the thought process around things like this, but I feel like it's kind of quietly pushing people towards solo farming. And the whole point of this genre, I think, is playing together. And I get wanting players to deliberately engage with that grind, right? I think putting in systems that actively hurts grouping up is not great in a game like this. It is what it is, and we'll see if they change it in the future. And I expect to see a lot of these kind of little flaws in a game this early in development. It should be noted also that this game has a slow start. Yeah, you jump right into the action, but you don't feel your class and function until you get your arsenal slot and runes. So if you're playing this game and it doesn't feel great, you kind of have to wait till about level 7. Level 7 to 10 is where it opens up and you start kind of feeling like your character is coming into their own. All right, so verdict time. Farever costs $18 right now with the launch discount, $20 normal pricing. For that price, you're getting a co-op action RPG with a traversal system that is pretty good, a build system that has more depth than it looks like on the surface, and a dev team that's visibly engaged with fixing things. Honestly, I think this is an amazing starting point for this kind of game. That being said, guys, I do keep seeing people asking, well, you know, I play X, Y, and Z game, does this have as much content? And the answer is no. This is an early access title. And I see this with a lot of games I review, and you know, not to go on a rant and not to actually shame anybody, I do understand asking the question, but if a title is in early access, it's not going to have thousands of hours of content. Like, that's just not how early access works. This game has 20 to 30 hours for a casual player, okay? And if you want to bring that into the hundreds, make one of every class, go unlock absolutely everything, farm for some legendaries, whatever, right? But currently is a small game, you go up to level 20. If you have people to play this with, I definitely think it's worth a buy. And I think it's worth a buy even if you don't have people to play this with. I really enjoyed the game. However, if early access games really bother you, if you do need that thousands of hours of content for a game, then this isn't it, right? This game is being actively built. There's going to be a lot of hiccups. There's going to be a lot of systems you look at and go, I think it should be better this way. And tell the devs that. They seem to be paying attention and they might look at a fix for some of these things. I would recommend a buy if you are someone who's fine with early access and likes these type of games. And I would recommend a wait for pretty much everybody else. The game will frustrate you though with its challenges as it's being developed. I will also add, if you have a hard line against early access cash shops, you need to know that this game does have one. Currently, everything in it is free, and the developers have released a statement saying that they are only going to put cosmetics in the shop. There will never be anything that affects gameplay whatsoever. I do still understand where people still dislike the idea of monetization in a game, and if you are hardline against that, then this is also a skip for you. This isn't a finished game, and it's not pretending to be one. It knows what it is, and that's kind of something I really like to see. And what it is right now is actually pretty good to justify the price, as long as you go with the right expectations. Anyways, guys, if you made it this far in the video, liking a sub would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to grow the channel right now, and every little bit helps. And also, you know, hit a hype if you really liked the video. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next video. And I stream on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, so feel free to stop by and say hi. As always, guys, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Peace out. And a special thanks to all our members for supporting the channel. You guys are what allows me to keep making these videos and doing what I love, so thank you.